Hello everybody! I continue on with my second to last installment in my A to Z readathon wrap-up about the 25 books that I read in November. So let's get straight into it with the letters Q through U. For the letter Q, I read The Q by Basma Abdel Aziz. Abdel Aziz is Egyptian and this book was translated into English by Elisabeth Jacquette. And it is a dystopia. I was initially nervous about reading it because I thought it would be very grim. I mean, it's based on the Arab Spring and the author works with torture victims in Cairo. So it wasn't going to be a happy-go-lucky story by any means, but I really liked it. This is about an unnamed state, very easy to imagine it as Egypt, which is controlled by an authoritarian regime. And there is this thing called the Gate. It calls itself the Gate. It might even be a slightly supernatural thing for all that I know, but there's this building, it's the Gate, and every day it cracks down on people's lives a little bit more and makes everybody get permission and documents for everything, the most everyday of things. And then one day it doesn't open, and this queue of people starts building up. People refuse to leave the line. Every day, every week, into months, they sit there living in the queue, hoping that today the gate might open, they might finally get to move on with their life. But it doesn't happen. The central character, whose story is the thread that binds everything together, is a man who's been shot by the military in a demonstration. He may or may not have even been involved in the demonstration. He might have just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the Gate doesn't want people to know that it's been shooting its citizens. And so it makes it illegal for surgeons to remove bullets from the bodies of injured victims because bullets are the property of somebody else and you can't meddle with somebody else's property. So this man is slowly being killed by a bullet lodged in his pelvis, and he is in the queue because he's been told that if he gets permission from the Gate, a surgeon can remove this bullet from him. So he's trying to save his life by standing in a queue. And there are all these other people in the queue too. You learn their stories and why they are there. Their friends try to help them and everything. And it is grim. There is not a happy ending, and that's the realism of it, I think. What I liked above all were the characters because they were normal and it felt like I could actually relate to them very strongly. Even though they were living in a culture, in a country so unlike mine, they were just trying to go about their lives. Their lives are very narrow and restricted and increasingly so. It's like, how long can you go until something breaks? But they were trying to just keep their jobs, get a job, make money, take care of their children, have surgery to save one's life, that sort of thing. And I liked the realism of that. It is grim, like I said, it doesn't have a happy ending, but I felt it was a very compelling read. For the letter R, I read Romancing the Werewolf by Gail Carriger, which is the story where Lyle and Biffy finally get back together. Lyle and Biffy are both introduced in her Parasol Protectorate series, which begins with Solace, and the events of this novella actually take place after Prudence and Imprudence, which is the first half of the Custard Protocol series. So to understand the situation, how these two characters met, and what separated them, and the rearrangements of domestic affairs, you kind of have to have read all like the 7 previous books or whatever. But it is well worth reading if you have wanted the happily ever after ending for this pairing. Lyle has been a werewolf pack beta for a very long time, and Biffy was once a vampire wannabe who accidentally became a werewolf and is now a pack leader in the London area. Due to circumstances and Lyle being called away for a different duty, they've been separated for 20 years, and then Lyle is released from his position and he can go back and offer his services as beta to Biffy. And all the lovey things happen. There are also a bunch of babies left on doorsteps, and it's actually quite a Christmassy story, so perfect for this time of year. I loved it. It was exactly what I wanted, exactly what it was billed as. I can't really say more about it than that. The Sea and Summer by George Turner, which is one of the Clarke Award winners. This is one of my favorite books I've read for the Clarke Award, actually. I really liked it, and I did a full review explaining more about it if you want to go watch that. Then for the letter T, I finally read Tender by Sofia Samatar, which I've been saving specifically for the readathon. This is her first collection of short stories, and a good handful of them I'd already read. In some cases, I had reread them multiple times before. Overall, it was a very strong collection. I read some new ones that I really liked. A thing that I noticed upon reading a bunch of her stories in a row is that there's actually a similarity between Samatar's style and Kelly Link's kind of slipstream style. I don't really like Kelly Link's fiction, but there's something about the way that Samatar does it, and particularly the topics and themes and people and cultures that she writes about, that always captures my interest. So upon rereading some of these, I liked them even more. I reread Ogres of East Africa, which I really liked even more upon rereading. This one was printed or reprinted in Uncanny Magazine, I think, so I think it's available online. I also reread Meet Me in Iram, which I really love the writing of that one. And a new one that I really liked was An Account of the Land of Witches. But overall, the whole thing was quite strong. So about what Samatar writes. Samatar is half Somalian, half Mennonite. And many of her stories, I think, talk about race and one's place in life and African heritage, African culture and such within fantasy and science fiction. I don't know, I can't really tell you what it is about her themes that I love so much, but I think it comes down to she makes everything sound beautiful and appealing and inviting. Her use of language, her style, maybe even just on the sentence level, I adore so much. So even though she has some sort of writing structuring similarity with some writers that I don't enjoy their short fiction, it works with her. And lastly, briefly, Unquenchable Fire by Rachel Pollack, which I finally read. I've attempted to read this book multiple times this year and I kept getting hung up in the first chapter. It was just difficult to get into, but well worth it once I persevered after the first couple of chapters. So this is another Clarke Award winner that I've also done a separate review on, so I won't go into too much detail about plot and stuff here. You can go watch the other video if you want to know more. But this is, in my opinion, an incredibly original, unique fantasy novel. It did win a science fiction award. It is in the science fiction masterworks line from Gollancz, but I call it fantasy because it's mainly magic, supernatural, and spirits. And I think the only science fictional aspect might be the alternate history bit. It's fantasy. So it is weird, it is based on tarot and divination and spiritualism, and I imagine that unless you have already read Pollack's work or read about these topics, it will be unlike any other fantasy novel you've tried. It was for me, and I really enjoyed it for just being so different and carried off well. And that is that for those 5 books. Once again, thank you very much for watching and for leaving me any comments if you have read these books and want to discuss them. And I'll be back again with the last installment, the final 5 books, very soon. And until then, bye.